we need more help with more teachers, less students in a class, more paras, that kind of thing. It can even be dangerous sometimes because there's a lot of issues.
Any further questions?
Just got a comment. I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Mike was saying earlier and kind of challenge you to take back to the Capitol, for all your colleagues to make something happen for the early education sooner than the 2014 school year. Having 3 small kids of my own, you can see that the earlier they're engaged with school activities, the more they benefit. So, I mean, take your 13 years in the legislature, challenge all your colleagues up there and get something done sooner.
Yeah, like I said, we haven't put the bill together, but like an all-day kindergarten, that's something for sure we're doing, so I kind of know that. But even though just because the cost, the all-day would not start until 2014, the additional investment in early childhood would start next year. So that part would start.
Yeah, I'm a very strong believer in early education, whether that be preschool, kindergarten. The sooner they're engaged, the studies show all over the nation. It's a problem right now. So.
310.
Harold Canberra, retired teacher. I was listening to radio this morning, and I think it's like that Georgia or somebody was saying with a transfer to high school class around here. They have to go to 82 million steps. So we have a possibility of something like that.
Well, there is online learning already in Minnesota. You go through whatever. But that's not my plan. Or our plan to move in that direction. I mean, as far as kind of things. I mean, students can take classes online right now. In fact, one testifier, one of the legislators, said before our committee yesterday that there's even, I think through Minneapolis, an online bi-ed class. I don't know how you do that, but he was saying there's an idea. Okay, yeah, he said Jim Dabney was saying there's an online bi-ed class. I have no idea. You remember how we used to have to climb rope? I think you have to go on the thing and climb rope on that. I don't know.
I'd like to make a comment on that. To me, I hear all the crowding of the, you've got these over. First, I have a problem with how do you get all these kids passed through and up to where they have so many that are so far behind. But you take that and you take the online look like the Khan Academy and that the sweep of the country, $1 per dollar value from the teacher input, from the consumer side, you're getting a lot better bang. If you want to unload the class sizes, put the brighter kids into the online. They can handle it. You don't have to have one-on-one with the brighter kids. It would seem to me that you might want to at least look at that option from the sideline. Because the bright kids, we're always worried about the slow ones. Well, we got just as much to worry about the gifted ones as we do the slow ones. And they should be able to run. One of the things that Khan Academy does is it doesn't shove kids through. They work at their own pace and they move when they're ready to move, not because we got the other 9-1 thing to get it down the road. That to me, I think it shouldn't be a closed door, not look at it. Look at what you can do to offload to get a better bang for your dollar. That to me would make a lot of sense.
In Wells, they have online classes at the school, but it's for, if somebody wants to take a special class that they don't offer at the school, then they can provide it online. And that works really well.
Well, just me, I wouldn't want to see you close the door and say it doesn't work, because it's working in a lot of places. I know you're going to have issues with unions and everything else to fight with, but I think you got to look, and you only got so many dollars, so you got to get the most out of them that you can. Why slow down the advanced students just to spend time with the slow students? I understand that don't leave anybody behind, but don't slow anybody down either. That would be my take at looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
Nowhere here you discuss how you're going to fund all this.
Right now we have a budget deficit of about $627 million. plus, as I mentioned, we plan to pay the schools back about $840 million. So you have about, just the start, get up to the starting line, we got about $1.4 billion project. And then we're hoping to invest new in education and also some significant property tax. And so you add all that up, it's getting close to about $2 billion or so. Right now, the governor has proposed to raise taxes on the fourth tier, those should be over $250,000, raising it up to 9.85%. That'd bring in about $1.1 billion. And that probably is going to be in the final works, just because the governor also had his initial proposal a business-to-business property tax that brought in $2.1 billion. A lot of us legislators, I know Shannon was very involved in this, went and talked with the governor and said, this is not good out there. To Governor Dayton's credit, he's dropped that portion, which really was by far the most onerous, and then also the other sales tax stuff. But he campaigned on the fourth tier, so that's going to stick. So we kind of, that's what everyone's going to do. Part of it's going to be paid for. The tax committee is going to have to decide how to go in about another $700–800 million. Now, one thing we're looking at is just that $800 million that we owe to the schools, and then there's some other things that we have shifted in the past. It's one-time funding. We're looking at a temporary surcharge on the highest incomes also. And that would be a blink-on, blink-off tax like they had in the 1980s under Albert Lea when he was governor and we were big deficits. And it'd be for 2 years at the max, and if the revenues start coming in quicker, we could cut it off after a year. It would be in state law. Once you hit that number, boom, it blinks off. So we think that's a one-time funding source for a one-time problem. Then we get everything, our debt paid off, and we're finally on square one. So that's, we don't, so it still leaves about probably 500 to 600 we need to look. We have cuts in the budget that we proposed, so that will be take care of part of that also. So the tax committee is going to have to kind of figure out the rest.
What happens if that 2% moves out of the state?
You know, I'm on the tax committee, and we've taken
if I was in
yeah.
the 2%, I'd be tempted to leave. I'm not in the 2%. I'm
Yeah.
just thinking that.
Yeah. There's been a lot of studies on what they call migration on that, and it's really mixed. And I mean, let's put it in perspective. If I am making $500,000 as a couple, the first $250,000 would be exactly the same. I would pay 2% more on the next $250,000, which would be what, 10,000? I mean, you're still keeping. I don't, you know, it's tough to say. We do a tax incident study every year, the Revenue Department. And what they look at is what does a person pay in state and local taxes versus their income. And what they find out is people in the middle, which would be senior citizens, middle, pay about 12.3% of their income in state and local taxes. If you're making $250,000 or more, it's about 9.3%. And that's kind of been Governor Dayton's deal is, you know, this, even what he's doing won't probably bring him up to 10.3, but in percentage, it still doesn't bring him up as high as a senior on a fixed income. So it's kind of a fairness issue, and, you know, in these tough economic times, if you're making over $250,000, this is going to be a little biased for me, I think you can pay a little more, especially if it's going to go to education to build the world's best workforce, if you can get there. I think really benefits the economy and actually because a lot of that goes on to small businesses, the pass-throughs, we know that. And yet most of that would be a profit. And I just think the investment that we can make with that's going to make it worthwhile for this.
Well, Albert Lea's got 3 major businesses and they're all local. Majority of our other industry has left the state. When I came here 40 years ago, there was 10,000 jobs in Albert Lea, most of them manufacturing. Now you're down to the big employers are the hospital, county, the school district. And I would guess if those 3 major employers weren't local, they would be looking at other places. So I think you got to be careful when you're dealing with those kinds of things.